Welcome to the Art of Healing podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to helping you connect with your mind, body, and spirit. This is Charlize, physician and Reiki master, and thank you so much for joining me. I would like to remind you that although I'm a physician, the information you receive in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. You can find my full disclaimer at my website, www.healingartshealthandwellness.com. If you like what you hear on this podcast, sign up for my weekly newsletter. Check your show notes for more information and for the link to sign up. Thank you. Welcome back to the Art of Healing podcast. This is Dr. Charlize. Thank you, as always, for joining me for today's episode. Before we get into the episode and I introduce our guest for this week, I do want to remind you that on the Saturday, the March 23rd at noon Central Standard Time, we'll have the opportunity to meet face-to-face during the Masterclass, Harmonize Your Energy. This is the second time to have the Masterclass. We had our first class on February 24th, and it was a great time of discovery for all of us. So I've decided to do it again, and many of those that attended plan to attend the second Masterclass, in which we explored our energy centers and our hormones. During today's episode, we are going to discuss focus, biohacking, keys to success from noted author, athlete, CEO, and founder of several companies, neuroscientist Dr. Mike Van Thielen. Dr. Van Thielen is the medical director of Clari Gen Z Health, which is an innovative medical company that has developed treatments to combat focus and inattention without the harmful side effects of many of the prescription medications that are available. Dr. Van Thielen is an accomplished author, public speaker, and athlete. He shared the stage with celebrities such as Les Brown, Brian Tracy, and Darren Hardy. And he has also accomplished several awards in his athletic career, including holding national records and titles. And he has also been a coach and therapist for Olympic athletes. Dr. Van Thielen is an entrepreneur with a vast business experience and a proven track record in establishing successful businesses in the areas of anti-aging, regenerative medicine, nutrients, and supplementation. During our episode, we got a great chance to get clear on what biohacking is. We also got to discuss things that we could do in our daily lives to improve our focus and attention. Dr. Van Thielen sells some great advice that we can use no matter if we are elite athletes, just trying to do better in our everyday lives. Advice really for all of us. So definitely enjoy. Hi, Dr. Mike. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure and it is an honor. I'm so excited to share your work and share your information with my audience. I think it's going to be incredibly helpful. So to get us started, for those of us that are new to the concept, can you tell us what is biohacking?
Yeah, good question, because it's an amorphous term and there's many definitions out there. But for me, it's easy. Biohacking means upgrading the body, the mind, and life. And from a health point of view, it means, or a performance point of view, it means objectively reversing our biological age. Because we all have a chronological age, right? But we know it doesn't mean much, because some people are 60 and they're about to die and they're suffering, and other people are 85 and they're doing very well and they're independent and healthy, right? So chronological age is just a number. What's really important is our lifespan or our health span. So I believe that today, with the technologies and biohacking strategies that are available to us, not just the elite, but the average person, I believe that anybody that starts implementing these biohacking strategies can live to be 100 years chronologically, but be able to do what a 40-year-old does. So still enjoying taking vacations, hiking, golfing, whatever it is that you like to do. And I believe that's possible today if we implement these strategies.
So it's not just about the longevity, not just being here. It's
Correct.
actually
Yeah.
being here and being healthy enough and strong enough to actually enjoy where you are.
Enjoy life, help others, right? Because that's what life is about. And being productive, yes, finding fulfillment. But when
Mm,
you're in a hospital bed from age 65 to 85, yes, those are 20 years, but what have they done but drain you and other people, right?
hmm. So now, when I hear the term biohacking, I tend to think this is something that's for the elite, is for someone who's super wealthy. So, is some biohacking something we can all do?
Yes, we certainly can. And you're correct because some people think biohacking, that's this term. So we immediately think about expensive technologies. Oh, I need to have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber in the house, or I need to buy $100,000 whole body photo biomodulation device. No, no, no. Now, those are all things that could work. And if you have money and you got nothing better to spend it on, for sure. But even those expensive technologies don't work if you don't have your foundation in place, right? So there are some foundational biohacks. And when I get clients, I'm not even starting with biohacking many times because I kind of put my clients in three categories. Number one, regaining control of your health. So when you are in pain, when you're diagnosed with a medical condition, or you're overweight, that means is you're below normal. So we need to regain control, and we have to get you back to quote unquote normal, get rid of the pain, get you an optimal weight, and get rid of those medical diagnoses and get you healthy again. So that's stage number one. Then number two is once we're back to normal, we got to go to optimal health. So now we got to implement lifestyle modifications so that we can be strong and vital and fit at optimal health. And only then in stage number three is optimal health the ideal foundation to maximize the benefits of biohacking, because now we're in optimal health, but now we want to reverse that biological age. So even if we don't go through those three stages, and somebody that is overweight and has diabetes, or high blood pressure, high cholesterol, not the fittest person, purchase $100,000 piece of biohacking equipment, that body's not going to respond to that anyways, right? And
Mhm.
so there are, in my latest book, I talk about 7 foundational biohacks. That is the foundation that everybody should start with, and they don't cost any money.
Okay. Before I go into my next question, what is your latest book?
My latest book, number 8 here, is the IZOT method,
Oh,
Unleashing Your Superpower. So that talks a lot about the biohacking we're talking about today, but also talks about productivity, focus, freeing up valuable time, and those types of things. So it's a big book.
oh, that's great. With listeners, I'll make sure I share how we can get copies of Dr. Mike's latest book. Because I'm sorry, I didn't actually realize that before we started our episode that you had recently authored a book, another book. Because I did let the listeners know your other publishings. So, in this world where we are bombarded with distractions and sensory overload, especially from the internet and social media, what are your recommendations that can help us focus better, to be more successful, and to accomplish more? What's your approach?
Yeah, there's a lot there, but I think um, there's a few key points here that I like to share. Number one, the reason why a lot of us are not focused and not driven, don't have any passion, and struggling day to day is because we lack purpose in life. And so when you're just going to an 8 to 5 job and you don't know what tomorrow brings, next week, next year brings, and there's no drive because you're working for somebody else and you're not living your own dreams, then what's the purpose, right? There is no purpose. And so, many times that puts us in a situation where we are not focused on goals or dreams or a plan to execute those because we don't have one, right? So many times with my mentees, I really start with the foundation, which is purpose and plan. We need to find our purpose or rediscover our purpose or confirm our purpose to ignite that passion, ignite that fire. And then, based on our goals and our dreams that we want to achieve, we need to create a plan. And that's important because we need to know where to go. Because many times, and you probably heard this saying before, when your dreams are not scary, they're not big enough. But on the other hand, if they are scary and big, then most of us will feel overwhelmed and assume we can't attain those goals and dreams. And that's exactly why we need a plan, because then we can break that huge, big, scary dream down into smaller steps, incremental steps that we can implement on a daily basis, that we can attain on a daily basis, and that bring us fulfillment. And so purpose and plan is the foundation, because we need to have the drive, we need to have that passion, and we need to have that path, and we need to know what's coming and what we need to do to get there. And so that foundation in itself alone will immediately, give you that focus, because you know where you're going. And when you have a drive and focus, nothing's going to stop us, because suddenly obstacles become stepping stones and opportunities to get you closer to that goal versus, oh, it's not meant to be, and why this and why that, because we don't have any direction, right? So I think from a broader perspective, that's very important if we want to focus, if we want to be productive, that we know why we're working and what we're working for and what our purpose is, what we want to accomplish. But on a daily, day-to-day basis, I think most of us are in what we call a dopamine overload. In order to be in the zone, in order to be present in the moment, in order to be, like you said, focused, our five intelligence hormones, which are dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, and serotonin, they need to be optimal, and they also need to be in balance. And that's when we're in the zone. Now, most of us today are in a dopamine overload, meaning the hormones are out of balance. And the result of that is brain fog, lack of focus, inattention, procrastination, and all those types of things that make us very, very much less productive, right? And so the first thing I do with my clients is educate them about dopamine overload, because we need to understand what it is and why we're in this brain fog and why we can't pay attention and why we procrastinate. And so the overload is caused by excess dopamine. Where do we get dopamine from, and what is dopamine? Dopamine is our reward hormone. So if our brain scores a little dopamine, it feels good. It's like we're getting a pat on the back. So consciously or unconsciously, we're seeking more of that. So when we talk about sugary foods and sugary drinks and energy drinks, in other words, bad food and bad beverages, and we think about social media, right? Because if somebody likes your comment or hearts your Instagram, it gives us a dopamine hit. And so therefore we seek more of it. Hence we get addicted to social media, or we just spend simply too much time on social media. And so all of that brings us in a dopamine overload, which is that imbalance of those intelligence hormones, which get us into that slump, vicious cycle of inattention, lack of focus, etc. So first we need to upgrade that diet, and we need to regain control of our social media, and not the other way around. And so many times that will kind of balance those hormones by itself. And then we need to do basic stuff that we got away from. When I was a kid, we had a designated area where your homework needed to be done. And so even adults now, when you ask them, where do you do your work? It's in the kitchen, it's in front of the TV, it's on the bed. But each area has its purpose. You cannot eat or work in your bedroom. That's the bedroom's for sleeping. So you need a designated place. And when you're going to work on a project or your homework, you need to let other people know that you are. Close the door and say, don't disturb me. And then we have these nice devices that disturb us all the time. So we need to turn them off and put them away, right? And so this device is very convenient, but you need to be in control of it, meaning I want to have this device in case I need to find a research article for my project, or if I need to call my colleague and ask him a quick question, because if I have to look it up, it's going to take me 3 hours and he has the answer. But I'm going to use it to my advantage. When I'm going to work on something, I'm going to turn this off, because I don't want other people to interrupt me for their advantage or their benefit, right? So we need to get in control of things, and we need to create an environment where we can work and can focus, right? And so then there's many techniques and strategies. To mention one, the Pomodoro technique. It's a technique that works for a lot of people. For some people, it doesn't work. But what you do is you set a timer, and for 20, 25 minutes, you're really going to focus in the designated area. No distractions, no phones, nothing. And then the timer goes off, and there's a 5-minute mandatory break where you leave, you go out, you do what you got to do. And 5 minutes, not 4, not 6, you come back and you repeat the cycle 4 or 5 times. And that's where, for a lot of people, they really are into instead of just not having any idea what the plan is. 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off, and you focus and you're not distracted. And if you want to check your social media during the 5 minutes, great, but not while you're getting focused. And so there's many things that we can do to recreate a productive environment and being focused, because as you know, they say that most of us produce 80% of what we produce in 20% of the time, right? So in 20% of the time, we do 80% of the work, and the rest we're just wasting and distracted.
I know for myself, it feels like I get incredible amount done in about 20 minutes. Everything's done. And then the rest of the time, I'm like, I don't know what happened with that, but I did something.
Yeah.
So dopamine, which I always understood is like the feel good chemical, feel good hormone. What you're saying is that right now, what's going on, most of us have too much dopamine. We're
Yes, and
producing too much, or we're surging it too much, or
yes. So in the past, and even now, it just depends on many things. It depends on your diet. It depends in if you're healthy or unhealthy. It depends if you're in control of social media or not. Because in the past, we were figuring out how to promote and stimulate dopamine, because dopamines feel good and dopamine motivates and dopamine inspires. So we were figuring out how to get more dopamine. And so how do we get more dopamine if we want to? Number one, exercise will promote dopamine. Number two, a deep delta sleep will promote dopamine. So you need enough sleep, right? Sunlight, natural sunlight, will cause reactions in which dopamine is promoted. So we need to spend more time outdoors in the sunlight, not with a hat and sunglasses and clothes on. We need to try to get as much skin bare as we can, so the sunlight can actually be absorbed by our body and produce the dopamine. So what do we have? We have and maybe you have sunlight, yes. And then next, I would say our diet's very important. Anything with saturated fats will deplete our dopamine. Our essential amino acids will promote dopamine. So many people talk about getting enough protein, but I would say if you are gonna get some supplements, get the essential amino acids, because then your body doesn't have to break down those proteins into amino acids, right? So amino acids will promote dopamine. What else? There is certain supplements or vitamins like folate, B6, iron, magnesium, curcumin. So those are the ones on top of my head that will promote dopamine also. And, those are the things that you can do to increase it. And that's a good thing. But you got to make sure you're not already in an overload. But the overload comes from the opposite, right? Unhealthy foods, sugary drinks and energy drinks. And then, of course, an overload from social media, which is only the last kind of decade where we are exposed to getting dopamine from a social platform, right? And so, but if you have a healthy diet and you're in control of your social media, then and only then would it be prudent to try to stimulate or promote your dopamine levels with the things that I just mentioned.
oh,
But most of my clients, it's the opposite. They're in a dopamine overload, so we need to get that under control.
thank you for explaining that. You mentioned vitamin B6. And
Mm-hmm.
in my own practice, that comes up a lot as far as getting that dopamine optimized. You said getting enough vitamin B6 naturally.
Yes, it's folate and B6. Yeah, those are considered the nutrients or vitamins that promote dopamine.
Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you so much. And that kind of clicked with me because I know with my own patients, being deficient on vitamin B6 has been a reoccurring theme. So I thought, oh wow, that's
Yeah.
actually it helps my folks. So thank you so
And
much.
again, doesn't matter what it is. If it's low, it's not good either, because then we also have an imbalance of those intelligence hormones causing that brain fog,
Yeah.
inattention, in focus, right? I
Yeah.
experience most of them are in an overload, but we cannot generalize with our patients, right? So we
Yeah.
got to know what their diet is, what they're doing, what their symptoms are. And based on that, we may need to lower the dopamine to create a balance, or we may need to increase that dopamine to achieve that balance.
Okay. Oh, that is so cool. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So, can you share with us, Clari Gen Z? Maybe just tell us about the company and then share with us what the company offers as far as enhancing our mental and our physical performance.
Yeah, it's a good backstory because I was the CEO of a stem cell clinic until COVID hit, and then we had to close the doors. So I was kind of figuring out what I was going to do. And a colleague of mine called me up and said, "Hey, do you have time because we need help?" Because in the state of Florida, they were pre-screening patients for medical marijuana, right? I said, "Sure, I'll do some of the calls." So I actually ended up talking to 100 people or patients per week with anxiety, depression, PTSD, ADHD, and all those conditions. And so what I found was that, of course, there's therapies out there and therapists out there, and there's smart drugs out there like your Ritalin, Wellbutrin, etc. But I found that again, there was this common denominator that I figured out. Most of these people didn't have a purpose in life, right? And just imagine that you don't know what tomorrow brings, next week or next month brings. And I placed myself in those shoes, then I would be worried, I would be fearful. And so those negative emotions, they translate into what? Anxiety, depression, and those types of conditions, right? So I think we always got to go always back to that foundation, right? Because therapies and drugs can mask symptoms, but why are those symptoms there in the first place is important. But long story short, one of the things that I was trying to do is get those patients off those harmful medications, but give them an alternative that is not harmful. So we have smart drugs like Ritalin, which again, it seems to help these people focus. But if you look at the long list of side effects, we're talking about increased heart rate, increased risk for heart disease, seizures, psychosis, and the list goes on. So it's not something that I personally can recommend. So I went to look in the field of what they call nootropics or nootropics, which are the natural alternatives to smart drugs. And there's many on the market, bacoba, ginkgo biloba, and many Chinese herbs and Ayurvedic medicines that have properties that would help us focus or help us with our memory and things like that. But I came across something that is patented as biocitroid. And biocitroid is a terpene from a specific type of blood orange or citrus fruit, if you will, from Southeast Asia. And at 30 milligrams of or higher, this biocitroid is able to cross the blood-brain barrier in about 30 minutes. Now, other supplements may work too, but many times they need several weeks to build up in your system to find out whether or not they work. And so this works pretty quickly. And so I came in contact with the company that had the patents to this biocitroid in the United States, and they were actually trying to make a formulation with it. And that's when I started helping them out. And so we added three ingredients. We added L-tyrosine, which is an amino acid which has been proven to help with memory, etc., and focus. Then we added phenylalanine, which is a neuroagent which helps with photographic memory and focus. And then the last ingredient we added, which is a very important one to me, is phosphatidyl, which we know scientifically to stimulate NGF, nerve growth factor. In other words, to stimulate the formation of new brain cells, neurotransmission, etc. And so when we put those four natural ingredients together, we found that there were no jittery effects, no adverse reactions or side effects, and that still many of these patients were able to get into that zone, because what we try to do with those ingredients is optimize and balance those five intelligence hormones that we talked about today. And so it doesn't work for everybody, just like anything else. So I usually tell people, give it a try. If you go to trysmartpill.com, you can get a free sample. Give it a try. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, don't buy it, right?
Thank you so much. So that sample link is trysmartpill.com.
Smartpill.com. Yeah.
So I'll make sure that we get that in the show notes so that we can all try
Try
that.
it.
That sounds like a wonderful formulation. And as you're naming off what's in it, I thought, wow, this is so interesting. And I'm finding it really interesting that what led you to here was screening people for medical marijuana,
Yeah.
which I know has helped some people, but I do get worried that it's being used just like pharmaceuticals to mask symptoms, but not getting down to the root of it. And sure enough, you're finding a solution for these people, that it doesn't have to just be, oh, let's just snow your brain with more chemicals. So that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So do you have anything else to share about Clari Gen Z, or any other offers to share with the
Well,
listeners? And I'll
ClariGenZ
make sure
is the
Dr. Dre.
company, and the product is called Focus Plus. So you can get a free sample of Focus Plus from the company. And again, I've helped people getting off those medications, but at the same time, I also put all of top athletes and NFL players on it, because sometimes it gives them that little extra edge and focus that they need to win. So,
Interesting.
it can be used for anybody. Some people use it just before they go on stage for the keynote speaking or a presentation at work, where they just need a little extra focus, or any competition. And so it doesn't mean you need to take this every time, but it may help in certain situations, and it's all natural.
Nice. Thank you so much. So
You're welcome.
before we part, Dr. Mike, can you tell the listeners what's the best way to connect with you, your company, learn more about you, and where to find a copy of your most recent book?
Yes, very good. Well, I'm not too much of a social media guy, because that would give me a dopamine overload, right? But everybody can find everything they need on my website, which is biohackingunlimited.com. And on that website, you can find all my books. Number one, you also can find my mentorship programs. And related to the mentorship programs, you can schedule a 20-minute free call with me, where we can talk where you are, what you want to achieve, and see how I can help you out. So check
Wow.
out those mentorship programs. What else? We have a Costa Rica VIP biohacking retreat coming up in August. And we always have our Limitless Lab, which is also on the website. The Limitless Lab is a 12-week virtual program where we basically help people to maximize their performance or overcome any disease through self-optimization. So there's basically a 5-step formula. The first 2 we talked about. We need purpose and plan, which is the foundation. And then number 3, we need to learn how to be present in the moment, because that's where we produce. We talked about that too. We need to master the skill of being in the zone on demand, because being in the zone is not just for athletes. Everybody can master this skill. And just imagine that when you master that skill, how would that affect your business or your life or your performance, right? So that's number 3. Number 4 is biohacking. That's where we're upgrading the body and the mind, not just the body in reversing that biological age, but we didn't talk about the mind today, but we really want to upgrade that mindset, basically manage all the faculties of the subconscious mind and put our ego aside so we can live our full potential. So that's step number 4. And then step number 5, because it's a 5-step program, step number 5, we're going to take the elements of those 4 steps, first 4 steps that work for you, and mold them into what I call a power routine, which is a daily routine that's customized just for you, that you can count on each and every day to be the best version of yourself. So check out the Limitless Lab on the website. So everything is on one place, biohackingunlimited.com.
Well, Dr. Mike, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for bringing all these great offers to all of us. I think I'm going to be trying it as well. So I thank you so much for bringing all this great stuff. And in honor of our dopamine levels, listeners, I'm going to make sure that you can check your show notes, which I do always make available. I do have social media, but I got to agree with you, Dr. Mike, as much as I can. I do try to keep communication through email, phone call, try to keep it personal. But for you listeners, I'll make sure a list of all of Dr. Mike's great resources are available. Dr. Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, because it's your time and your effort too. And together as a team, we try to help more and more people.
Thank you so much. Listeners, I'll see you next week. Thanks. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Art of Healing podcast. Once again, this is Charlize. You can find out more about me at www.healingartshealthandwellness.com. Did you know I have a blog as well as online courses? Check your show notes to sign up for more information about healing arts, health, and wellness. Thank you. Please feel free to share this episode with your friends, family, and loved ones.